This is the Cult Faction Podcast, episode 39, that 70s special.
Superman.
Hi, welcome to the Cult Faction Podcast, episode 39, that 70s special. I'm Damien, and as ever, I am joined by...
Brett Summers.
And Paul Hawkins.
Okay, we're going back to the 70s. It's a groundbreaking time for television. Social change was taking place in the wider world. US TV networks were beginning to veer away from the more wholesome family shows of the 50s to 60s. The UK, just getting used to colour television. Ooh. Gone were the likes of the Ed Sullivan Show, the Beverly Hillbillies. In came high concept shows like Battlestar Galactica and The $6 Million Man. In the UK, police dramas such as Dixon of Dock Green were on the decline, and the more realistic, hard-hitting, gritty shows like The Sweeney were taking over. In this show, we're going to take a look back at the more significant shows, the stuff that shaped our lives, mostly in the 80s, but they were made in the 70s because, you know, we were only about 3 or 4 in the 70s. These are going to be the must-watch, you have to have seen shows of the 70s.
For many reasons.
In our opinion.
It might not have been because they were good, but you still might have to watch them.
Exactly. They shaped everything that's come since. Should we just go straight into it? I don't think we need to babble, do we? No one really actually cares how our week's been. No one listens to that bit.
I did actually watch a few films this week.
What did you watch? What did you watch? Quick.
No, not if we don't want to talk about it.
That's right.
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, so first of all, Dope Sick Wheel of Time.
What's that? Everything but the girl. I don't wanna
talk about it. That's enough. We can't sing anymore. We get sued. I can't remember now. No, that was an older song. I think they.
It's old. Yeah, you're right. I think it was. No, it doesn't matter. I know Everything But the Girl covered it. Who was it?
Anyway, what did you watch, Paul? Didn't Rod Stewart do it at one point?
Yeah, he definitely done it. But it was.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Well, I had a great week.
Is Dr. Google not looking it up?
I'm not looking it up. I refuse to, because I know it. If I know something, I refuse to Google it. It will come to me at some point. So we might be an hour into this recording, and I'll suddenly shout out the name.
Okay, cool. So Brett, did you want to go first then?
No.
No, I know who it was, but I'll let you.
You Googled it.
No,
I didn't Google it.
You did Google it.
All right, I might have done. So do you want me to tell you or not?
No. It all comes to me.
Okay.
In the meantime, you just talk amongst yourselves.
Right, while you're thinking.
Yeah.
Well, I've finished the.
I thought Paul was going first.
You just said go for. All right, sorry, Paul, go for it. My apologies.
Okay, so
he was all geared up. He had his phone in front of him and everything with his notes.
Have you? So it's a Wheel of Time. Still going good. Although there's not many episodes left of this series.
So still worth a watch then. It hasn't dipped or anything. You're still recommending.
In my humble opinion, it's getting better and better.
Excellent.
And Dope Sick's carrying on being okay, but again, it's nothing really, groundbreaking, as the old saying goes. I did take a trip down memory lane because obviously, we talked about Squid Games and some of the other films that have come out recently with a similar battle royale stint. So I went back and actually watched Battle Royale, and I haven't watched that in ages.
Donkey's years.
Yeah. And it's still good. I mean, it's one of those things that's still a little bit over the top with some of their performances and acting, but it still stands the test of time. And
I'm scared when I work out how old that film is.
Yeah, but when you think about the amount of stuff that's come through that, okay, the storyline in itself, it may not be from Battle Royale, may not have been the first one, but there's a lot of films and TV shows that have taken inspiration specifically from Battle Royale. So no, it was good, and certainly for
Hunger
those people.
Games.
Yeah, definitely. So for those that haven't seen it, it's worth a little delve onto I think it's on Netflix or something, or one of the channels on Netflix. So yeah, give it a watch, because as I mentioned, you kind of see everything else that has been inspired by it, or at least pays homage to it.
It was a great film. You're right.
Yeah. So I also thought, I'm not going to wait until it's free. I'm going to spend some money and watch Venom: Let There Be Carnage. Slightly
What's that
underwhelmed.
Carnage?
No, I was a little bit underwhelmed with it.
Did you watch it after the credits as well?
Yeah. It's just, I didn't necessarily mind the first one. So I think that's the thing. I think for a lot of haters out there that didn't like the first one, it was probably better. But
that was my view on it, actually. Yeah, I didn't hate the first one, but it wasn't what it should have been. But I like this one.
Yeah, but
carry on, sir.
No, I kind of like both of them, but I think the first one still wins the battle royale for me, as opposed to Let There Be Carnage.
See what you did there.
Yeah.
What puts the first one ahead? What drags it down, do you think?
Well, again, it's the not legacy. What is it? It's the starter one. So it shows the story of how it happened, and I think that's always the interesting thing for me. This is just a bit repetitive. I still like the chemistry between Venom and his host, but I don't know, and I don't think Woody Harrelson really shone as much as I really would have.
He looked better in this film though, because the last film they just gave him like a cheap ginger wig.
Yeah. So I mean, he's got a fully fledged costume in regards to makeup and hair and stuff like that, but. Yeah, I was just a little bit let down, and I don't really know how to describe it. It's just I think, as I said, that I liked the first one enough as it was, and this didn't really feel like it gave Venom that much of a challenge, because again, Carnage had some of the same issues in regards to sound and all that kind of good stuff. So, as opposed to giving him a different villain to battle.
Do you think, and this is kind of my view on it, that they had a lot of stuff planned out, because there were a lot of Easter eggs to a lot of different characters, like for instance what happens to the policeman played by what's his face, British actor?
Adam Woodyatt.
No, not Britain's legendary actor television, Adam Woodyatt.
Burnside.
What's his name? He's really famous. This Is England and all that. He played Al Capone in Boardwalk Empire.
Oh, for the love of God!
Scouse bloke.
Yep, I can see his face. He's in
he's in that new one with Danny Mays.
Code Red.
But like he played, he gets done by the symbiote at the end, and like his character, there's a whole backstory there. If you read the comics, you know that. But to me, like there was
something.
Yes, Stephen begins with G.
Graham.
Not
Stephen Graham.
Stephen Graham.
Steve
There
Graham.
we go.
There we go. Got there.
We are on the ball here. You lot at home shouting out the answer to us. We know, but we're a bit older. We've been back to the 70s, and a lot of stuff happened in the 70s of this episode, and we've relived it. And our memory recall might not be what it was, but I think they set up a lot of things during the Venom Let There Be Carnage, and then I think at some point during production they got the nod about it. Well, the spoilers. Am I allowed to do spoilers?
Yeah.
Well, you can, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been out enough now, but the end credit scene where obviously the effect of what Doctor Strange does in the Spider-Man film happens, and suddenly they're in sort of the MCU. I think that kind of might have took the sting at the tail a bit, where they might have done a few other things, but because that was coming, it's almost like, well, if we're going to put him in with that lot, we don't need to set up our own, because it was kind of, Venom was like a Sony film only thing. Yeah. They referenced Spider-Man and all that, but I think it almost killed off their bit, because it's all, it's in with, do you get what I mean? It's sort of, now they've got to get approval and everything like they do for Spider-Man.
Yeah, I think they just could have made it a bit more punchier and as I said, I wasn't too blown away with the whole Venom Carnage.
But when one of the best characters is the lady that runs the shop.
Yeah, exactly. But
She has more character than half the people. But yeah, and what else are you watching?
So I also gave The Last Duel a watch as well. So this is the one with Adam Driver, Matt Damon, Jodie Comer, and I didn't know it at the time, but obviously where you've got one, you got to have the other. You can't have Matt Damon without Ben Affleck, which I didn't know about, as I said before I started watching it.
I was playing catch up then. I generally was thinking you said Jewel, as in like Jewel of the Crown. I was thinking there's some sort of swashbuckling film I've not heard of, but Jewel, I know the one you mean now. It's come back to me. I remember seeing the trailer for it.
Yeah. So
Sorry, did I ruin your train of thought?
No, because I also found out that afterwards, which explained a lot, that it's all. I think it's almost written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, or they just.
I thought you were going to say I found it afterwards. It was all a dream.
Yeah, and I woke up in the shower
with Bobby Ewing.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised because a lot of people have raved about this, and it's from Ridley Scott as well. Who's got a name for making the odd good film.
And who's overrated.
Don't get him started on that.
So without giving too much away, because it has just come out. So The Last Duel basically tells one story through the eyes of three different people. So maybe a good guy, maybe a bad guy, and maybe a woman. and you can guess who that woman may be. Jodie Comer, because she's the big actress.
I was going with Ben Affleck.
And it kind of takes on a modern theme in a lot of ways that's probably overlooked from the olden times, i.e. how women were potentially treated and looked down upon in many aspects of society from the men basically rule the roost. If something happens to a woman, then who really cares? So it kind of tries to say, actually, you know what? We want to shine a light on some things that happened that are really bad, and try and bring it to the foreground and make a big epic film out of it. And it just doesn't work. I mean, obviously the production quality is great. I mean, Ridley Scott, name that obviously draws in a lot of money. Same with Matt Damon, Adam Driver, Ben Affleck. So again, the budget's good. The sets are fantastic. The detail is fantastic, but it kind of just loses its way. I mean, you remember I watched The Green Knight a few months ago, and that was broken down into different acts. So this tries to do it in a similar way, 3 different acts showing 3 different stories with the 3 different perspectives of one bad thing that happened. But there's no real good guy, there's no real bad guy, because again, where it's told through 3 different lights, you don't know who's good and who's bad. I mean, even Matt Damon's supposed to be the knight of the hero in this to some degree. Even when it's through his eyes, you don't really buy into it. Adam Driver, while he actually does a good role and plays a decent enough role in this, you just don't kind of buy it. But I just didn't buy any of it. It felt really faux, FAUX, because it's French. It felt really false, and it was a real shame. But that's just my opinion. I mean, it may be worth a watch and getting your take.
It's weird how you said it. Really reminded me of do you remember Ghost Dog: Way of the Samurai with Forrest Whitaker, late 90s, and that had what they call like a Rashomon story as well, where it's like because he saves this mobster bloke and helps him because he remembers how the guy saved him. But when you see later on how the mobster recalls the story, he doesn't remember it that way at all. But it's just again the different perspectives, and that's the what was the original Japanese style? Yeah, Rashomon they called that, and it's kind of, well, like most Japanese cinema, nicked and adapted by the Western world and taken on board as our own and renamed. But it's
I don't know why it didn't resonate with me, because again there were some good performances in it. Jodie Comer again was good in it, and
would you say it's more down to script, or
I don't
you
know,
didn't like the characters?
I just didn't get any chemistry from them. But maybe that's the point, because some of them are supposed to be aloof and high nobles, and so how really, how much of the relationship can they form with other people, and they have to be aloof because of who they are. But no, I think it was more than that. It just didn't come together right for me. It was just didn't glue. And that's basically the big ticket items that I've been watching this week.
Okay. As Brett, you were really, so keen to say what you were talking about. You took over from Paul's conversation.
I haven't watched anything. Well, no, I haven't really. No, I finished off the Chucky TV series because Sci-Fi Channel put all the episodes on now, so you can actually just binge through it if you want to. So if you go on there, UK listeners, they're all on there. I think there's 8, and really good series. It covers a lot of the little sort of missed details maybe in the films, and there's loads of Easter eggs and references to even minor characters in the films, and it's a real, it's all written by Don Mancini since the start, so he knows the world he's created, and it comes across in that. I would say it slows down in the middle because we kind of get all the cool Chucky shit, then we get it gets a bit 90210 in the middle with like the teenagers and the kids and that, and then it kind of merges from 90210 back into Mad Chucky shit again. And you even get the original Andy Barclay back for a little bit. You get the girl from Child's Play 2 who helps Andy. She comes back a bit. I've forgotten the actress's name now, but she's been in loads of other stuff. So it knows its stuff, and I won't say the end, but yeah. Well, see, it's already news that a season 2 is coming because it plants a lot of seeds at the end for what's to come. And really good. And I also watched a bit more of that Star Trek Lower Decks cartoon. It's all right.
I suppose.
To be honest, I was doing my Christmas wrapping and I was stuck with something to watch. I thought I haven't watched all these yet, so I just put them on while I was doing it. But it's all right. It's funny enough, but it's just Star Trek with a couple of more sort of not ruder jokes, but sort of a bit more. I don't want to say risque, but it's a little bit more edge. What would it be? Probably Simpsons level with. There might be a couple of dodgy references or something, but not enough to, scare the children.
Rock the boat.
Yeah, cause any sponsorship cancellations and all that. And that's been the main stuff, really. It's just sort of been mad at work, getting it ready for. My main plan is to try and get as much done, so I haven't got to do anything over the Christmas period. So January's ready for school. But that's about it, really. Yourself, Mr. Hicks?
Well, I wasn't expecting to be talking about what we watched this past week, so I've hurriedly tried to remember what I've watched this last week, and I had my booster jab over the weekend, so I've been pretty much in a coma for the last couple of days. But
Just
I
like
did
the 70s.
Exactly, much like the 70s. I couldn't walk in the 70s.
I used to shit myself.
Yeah, so did I. So I watched 8-Bit Christmas.
Oh yeah.
And you're right, Paul. It's not laugh out loud funny like the trailer made it look, which we always say this. That's what trailers do. But it's enjoyable. I did enjoy it. There was a few things in there where you think they could have done this and they could have done that. That would have made that bit funnier or whatever. But overall, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I still want to watch it.
Yeah,
it is on my list. It's Amazon. It's Amazon, isn't it?
I don't know. I got it
on Sky.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe
I did it on Now TV, but I think it's
more of a sentimental comedy like Wonder Years type thing, as opposed.
Yeah, you're
to
right. That was a good way of putting it, actually.
I just thought of two more things. So sorry, carry on.
That's right. And the only other thing I've watched is I've obviously been on a Christmas drive trying to get the festive spirit. Is A Boy Called Christmas, which again is Sky Movies and Now TV. It's trying to be a nice kind of cozy twee Christmas story that the kids will fall in love with and watch every year, but there's just not quite enough in it to do that. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad watch, and what's his name, Stephen Merchant does the voice of the mouse. It's quite funny, and there's some really nice little bits in it, but it's kind of, it's another take on the origin of Father Christmas or Santa Claus, but he could have just put a few more things in there to build up the legend of Santa Claus, Father Christmas, but they just kind of almost in the middle of the film skip over a lot of stuff to get to the end, so it kind of leaves you feeling a little bit flat.
Origin story. And why do they need to do that anyway when Santa Claus the movie
Yeah,
told us how it happened?
I was just thinking the same thing.
Loads of them have done it, and some of them are good, some of them are bad, and this one isn't bad, it's just
not Santa Claus the movie.
It's just something missing, and I can't quite put my finger on what it is. Yeah. So that's it. That's the only two things I've watched. Cool. Unless I do what you do, Brett, and suddenly remember.
Yeah. This
about half an hour's
time. It's fine because it's our 70s special show, not our what have we been watching show.
That's cool.
I didn't start this.
I was quite
happy to get straight into the 70s, but no.
Yeah, and now Brett's coming back.
Yeah.
Okay, my final thing that I just remembered, I have a confession to make. This week,
we've known some time, Brett.
This week, no, this is even you don't know this one. this week, having for a Christmas treat, the kids could pick a film to put on. Like you do. It's school. It's Christmas. Come on, kids, what do you want to watch? And they picked Home Alone.
Did you wheel out a television?
No, those.
Well, with the AVAs. Was it audio visual assistant?
Yes.
Monitors, AVA monitors.
Big sheet up in the corner of the room, and then
you wouldn't even be allowed to have one of those trolleys anymore. So the finished trolley with the shittest wheels and a fucking 80-ton telly on the top that could crush a small child. Yeah. And they picked Home Alone, and we put it on. We were watching it, and I suddenly realised that I'd never actually seen Home Alone.
How can you avoid Home Alone? How does that even work?
I've seen bits of, I remember I've seen all the bits with the burglars and the, getting hit by that and set on fire and all that shit, all that stuff. Sorry, and but I was watching it and I was like, I don't remember this. And I was like, I don't remember that. And like the plane ticket getting put in the bin, and then the thing with that, and the dad being the guy that owed Tony Soprano money, who was a gambler, and I forgot all that, and no, he's a cop, sorry. And then jumps off a bridge and kills himself. And then later on, the John Candy. I don't even remember John Candy being in Home Alone. And where he's the polka band, and they give her the mum the lift back in their lorry and all that. And and the strange old man that lives across the street. I was like, I've never seen this film before in my life, apart from probably that bit where the guys, the wet bandits get broken out. I didn't even know what they were called, the wet bandits. Found out now, but
it's a whole 20 years of pop culture you've completely missed out on.
But I think I've just always seen the bit with the house and the breaking in and all the pranks. I've just never seen the actual story. I mean, I was totally wrong on why they were called the Wet Bandits. I don't know. It was just like, but but I've seen it now, and apparently there's a second one.
Spoilers.
So I can't wait. This Macaulay Culkin's got a future. I can't wait to see what he does next.
Well, I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah, I don't know where we go with that.
I was surprised myself.
I'm not sure whether I believe you, as you can't remember what you watched last week, but maybe it's just a memory thing.
I didn't even know John Candy was in it. I was just like, that's John Candy. And one of the other kids who's in my class pointed out that he was also Uncle Buck. I said, I know that one. And I was quite chuffed the kid knew, because these were year 7s as well. So
that's impressive.
These are 11, 12 years old. So, and they picked Home Alone. So, they didn't pick, it was the options of Disney Plus, and they wanted to watch Home Alone. So, there's some taste still out there. It's not all Paw Patrol and other stuff. Whatever the other stuff is, I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
there we go.
Yeah. On that bombshell,
the internet's gone into silence.
I went back to was that 80s? Was that 88?
Yeah.
And now
what, Home Alone?
Early 90s, wasn't it?
1991, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so we've gone back to the 90s. Now we just got to go a little bit further back to the 70s.
Right then, it's the 70s.
Oh,
Cast your mind back. Ooh.
what a glorious decade that I lived through via rerun.
Classic Channel 4 reruns.
Late Night Late.
One.
All that.
Late Night Late, yeah. Who wants to kick us off then?
I can bring something to the table if you wish. I'm going to start with one again. I ended up watching it. It may have been late. No, I don't think it was Late Night Late. I think it was Channel 4. And I'll be honest, it was awful, but you do need to watch it. I bring to you.
It's not a good start.
Oh no, it's worth watching, but for someone needs to do it now and just redub it, and it will be brilliant. You know, like it's one of those sort of shows. I bring to you Star Maidens.
Nope.
What? You've never heard of it? Right. Well, picture it's the 70s. Science fiction is cool now. This was just before Star Wars broke, I believe. Yeah, it was about 75, 76, looking at my notes. And back in those days, often different studios would team up from different countries to try and make a show together that they could chuck out in their own, save costs and chuck it out on two markets, which still happens a bit now. Sky are doing it a lot with HBO, and BBC have been doing it with a lot of different things in America to fund their programs. And Star Maidens was it was a British production from Portman Productions, and also it was a German production. Now the British production team wanted, I'll go through the concept of it in a minute. Yeah, actually I'll do the concept for it. The concept is basically there's like a race in space, a planet called Medusa, where basically, remember, this was the 70s. All the women are the controlling ones, and all the men are like the servants and the house husbands and all that sort of thing. And they're basically almost like slaves.
Sounds like two Ronnies, not sketch. They did a long running sketch.
Yeah.
The Worm Has Turned. That was what
That's
it was
right.
called.
Yeah.
Diana Dawes, I think, was one of the main characters in that one. Anyway,
it's probably not that. It's probably not that different from that. It starred Gareth Thomas just before he became Blake from Blake 7, I think.
I know. I was thinking of Gareth Hunt. He's the Nescafe man, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the other curly hair one.
Because there's only two.
Sorry, I've just looked up, and Mr. Blobby is on the telly.
Is it about Christmas songs?
Have we gone back to the 90s as well?
Yeah. Sorry, tangent. I'll shut up. You carry on.
No, that's all right. Gareth Thomas is probably the only one I really remember. Judy Geeson's in it, who was kind of been around TV, and Victoria Dawn Adams as well has been around TV. But basically, Gareth Thomas plays Shem, and he's got a mate as well. And basically, they want to escape this. They've had enough of being treated like slaves by these women, and etc. And escape and end up on Earth. And of course, when they get to Earth, everything's different. Men are in charge. It's the 70s, and all that. And of course, they love it and don't want to go back. And they're on the run. So the Star Maidens send people after them to chase them and all that. And it's kind of every episode is them on the run, and you kind of get the bit on Earth with them on the run being pursued by the Star Maiden police ladies or whatever it is that are trying to catch him and bring him back, as well as then on the spaceship around Earth and the home planet, where you got this kind of battle of the sexes politic angle kind of playing out, which on paper sounds quite forward thinking, etc. for, especially for the 70s. But the problem they had was the British production team wanted a kind of serious science fiction thought piece, because in those days, that's what kind of a lot of TV science fiction was very kind of. I mean, we'd had Star Trek before that, but it was kind of it was a lot more hard thinking and challenging and more serious rather than sort of swashbuckling and explosions and shooting aliens and blowing stuff up. It's a bit more kind of a lot more to think about. Well, that's what the British audience wanted, whereas the German people behind it kind of wanted a scantily clad sort of slap and tickle, almost Benny Hill show like program. So obviously there are conflicts in production. So you end up with this kind of serious kind of science fiction thing trying to take place, whilst women are chasing them with crop tops that are barely covering themselves and miniskirts that barely. I mean, if you just Google Star Maidens, have a look at some of the costumes, you'll see what I mean. And
Might save that one for later.
they look like Pan's people or something, you know. So it's just sort of, and it ended up, and most of the equipment that is ripped off from Space 1999 to the fact that it was recorded in the same studios and they just moved it around. And there's even some bits there that then turn up in Blake 7 later on. So it was kind of done a bit on the cheap with a half British crew and a half German crew. And so the languages are a little bit different at times, and maybe
It's a bit like our
dubbed over
feeder
or
zone, Pat.
heard of that. But it's just kind of, yeah, it's just this weird mishmash of, which I think sums up the 70s. But the show is out on DVD. You can buy the complete series now. But it is on, I'm sure there's some on YouTube and things. But it's just, it is awful. But it just, I think it just sums up where science fiction TV was at that point, and just kind of, it's a nice benchmark for the times of what was about to come and what had come before it. So that was Star Maidens. Go and have a look.
I don't think I want to.
Did you see the pictures?
I've got, yeah, I've Googled it. It's in front of me now. No. Just no.
You can imagine some guy there who's written this deep emotional script about, you know, female politics and, you know, the controlling thing and all that. And they're like, okay. And then like, right, here's the costumes. And it's like, no, that's not what I wanted. Now the German production has said they've all got to wear these, but they're basically swimsuits. Yeah, it's all right. You know, you can just see this poor man who spent hours writing these really detailed, long, almost kind of, sorry, a bit boring scripts. As it's all really deep science fiction, and then they all turn up, and it looks like the end of Benny Hill.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, there's a lot of hairspray in this program as well. But that was my first offering. But a forgotten classic, probably for a good reason, but one you should probably at least watch the pilot episode of. It's only about 20 minutes, I think.
If we so desire to watch the pilot episode, where would we go to do that?
Again, probably, I say there are DVDs available. I'm sure if you look on YouTube, it's probably on there, which, you know, you wouldn't be breaking it, or the person hosting it would be. And I don't even know if it's on Amazon or not. It's probably on one of them somewhere. I think there was an argument over the rights at one point because the German production company were claiming it and the British one were claiming it, and there was a whole big hoo-ha because, you know, they need that content. You know, Star Maidens could be could be the program that changes the tide of the content wars that we're currently going through. Probably for the wrong reasons, but I do feel if someone just got hold of that and just redubbed it now, it could be a hilarious TV show.
Yeah, I'm surprised Forces TV haven't got in on the act with this one. It's got that look and feel about it.
But yeah, there you go.
Cool.
I don't know if I can top that.
No, I don't think anything we're going to talk about in however many episodes we manage to drag this 70s on for is ever going to top.
Well, at the rate we're going, this may take us through all of 2023, let alone 2022. Okay, so I'm gonna try and move on from Star Maidens, and I'm just gonna go old school. What I think is classic telly. I'm not so sure anymore after Star Maidens, but you know, I think one of the things I like about this TV show is it just dispels the myth that scientists have been spouting for years and years that gamma radiation is actually bad for you. You know, and I'm going to take us back. I'm just going to come out and say it. The Incredible Hulk. Again, you know, it spanned the 70s and early 80s as well. None of us watched it in the 70s that we can remember, let's face it, because we were, you know, sprogs.
I remember crying and hiding behind the sofa and running off.
But yeah, it was one of those programs on a Saturday night, watching it. It was before CGI, so obviously we you know, there was two actors. You know, Bill Bixby playing Dr. David Banner, and the great Lou Ferrigno playing the Incredible Hulk. And and yeah, there was no CGI, but being a kid, I was just amazed every time he turned into the Incredible Hulk, and being the Incredible Hulk was this big, muscly monster. The idea that it was actually a man, not possible. And then obviously, the likes of Arnold Schwarzenegger, not so long after that. But again, watching him rip off car doors and bend steel bars and smash and all the great things that Hulk does was fantastic. But the other side to it as well, and we've spoken about this before, that when we looked at great comedy films and great horror films that managed to portray lots of different emotions, the Incredible Hulk wasn't just a smash grab action series. It was quite deep and meaningful. I mean, even the end credits, where every time Dr. David Banner would be off walking down the road, on a little hobo almost, with the soundtrack going. What was it? The Lonely Man theme. Yeah.
It always sounds a bit like My Way, but slower to me.
Yeah, it was one of those programs that, again, I remember being, as I said, but kind of choked up at the end of a lot of the episodes, because he does all these great things, but he's always on his own. He's like the littlest hobo. He's always moving on to find the next person he can help.
Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, but I think it just stands out as that great show. And nowadays, obviously Hulk's in the MCU and everything, but I don't think it really holds up in the same emotional juxtaposition between smashing and also being a deep, meaningful person as some of the 80s shows did. I mean, I think there were like 90 different episodes over the course of 6 years or whatever it was as well. So and obviously some of them were a bit hit and miss. Let's be honest, but that's what I'm calling for my list of 70 shows, if I've got to.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Well, at least you're aware of it, as opposed to Star Maidens. Let's face it.
No, fair enough.
It's true. I mean, you've brought it up a level.
But the thing about the Incredible Hulk as well, and you go back and watch it now, it's another one of those shows. The amount of people that cut their teeth on that show and moved on to bigger and better things, and all.
Well, you say bigger and
James
better.
plays about 5 different characters during it. Yeah, well, some of them do. I bet if we go back, there would be a few people that are probably major Hollywood stars now that.
Oh yeah.
That were there at some point as scared teenage girl number 1 or something like that. But no, good choice, Incredible Hulk, and people still remember it, and it's still playing Lou Ferrigno's Mortgage.
Yeah.
Damien.
Didn't he pop up in Somebody's Neighbour in a sitcom in the night? Or maybe no, probably wouldn't have been the 90s. I think it was early 2000s. I'm sure he was a neighbour.
If somebody's neighbour, would that be Home Improvements? That was always like
no. You actually you don't see that neighbour, do you? No, he was. I'm sure he was like the neighbour or lived on the same street as wherever this sitcom. I want to say The King of Queens.
I never watched that.
I never. It was one of those ones that was on like lunchtimes from Channel 4. I'll look it up at some point in the next hour and confirm. But I'm sure it's King of Queens, and he just pops up every now and again. He's like the neighbour that he doesn't get on with, or there's a little bit of conflict. But he's not playing a character; he's playing himself.
You are correct.
Is it King of Queens?
You are correct.
Is he playing himself?
Yeah, as a fictionalized version of himself.
Well, yeah.
I like they put that in now, just in case you judge someone because of how they are in a TV show or a film.
Cool. No, that's my contribution to the Incredible Hulk. I remember it being on, and I remember being annoyed by it. It's like, just go somewhere and calm down. You'll be fine. That's all you got to do. Just stop getting so angry.
4-year-old Damien inventing anger management.
Yeah, well, just take yourself away from the situation.
Go and sit on the noise step and sort yourself out.
Okay. All right. Well, whilst we're while we're on the subject of kind of random oddities, I would not, to be fair, I wouldn't say the Hulk is a random oddity, but I would certainly say Star Maidens is a random oddity. I'm going for something that I didn't watch during the 80s or even 90s. It was something I found in a bargain bucket when Virgin Megastore was closing down in the early 2000s, and I just liked the look of the front cover of the DVD, so I brought
I'm
it.
excited.
Unfortunately,
Are you sure you want
come
to
with
talk
me in
about
the
this?
various moves. No, it's perfectly. Well, I think it's perfectly safe. It didn't come with me when I moved house like 3 times since, so I've lost the DVD, and it's actually it's so bad it's good. It's worth me trying to replace that DVD. I think it's something called Beasts, and it was like one series. It was UK made, and it was like an anthology of weird stories, but they all revolved around like beasts. So, and there's only one that I can actually genuinely remember being good. That's not necessarily mean the rest of them are bad. It's just there's one that's stuck in my mind, and it stars Pauline Quirk, who's obviously a lot younger back in the 70s, and she's working as a shopkeeper or shop assistant or something in this corner shop, and she's got a crush on her boss, and something happens, and it's like weird paranormal ghosty stuff then takes place. I haven't researched it. Well, I did actually. I tried to find out what actually happens in it, and I couldn't find any reference to it, but I'm pretty sure I'm not making this up. I'm pretty certain it was definitely called Beasts.
You are correct. I've just been background it. It ran for 6 episodes.
Yeah, and I'm right, isn't it?
And Pauline Quirk was in episode 1 called Special Offer.
Maybe that's why I remember it, because it was maybe I only watched the one out of that entire DVD. But either way, that I remember that from 15 years ago being quite freaky and weird, all in the same breath. But I think part of that might just be because it was made in the 70s and it looks a bit weird. But either way, if you can get hold of a copy, or actually it might even be on YouTube, to be fair, probably worth a look. I hadn't thought about doing that until this moment.
Other episodes featured Anthony Bate, Martin Shaw, Simon McCorkindale, Michael Kitchen, and Bernard Horsfall, if that helps.
All household name. Well, Martin Shaw is a household name, I suppose.
Simon McCorkindale was Manimal and Casualty, or Holvey, one of them.
Yeah, and Emmerdale, I think. Didn't he do Emmerdale?
I wouldn't have watched that.
No, neither would I, but these things get stuck in your mind, don't they? Anyway, if you can get hold of a copy, or if it is on YouTube or something, it's worth watching just for that one episode, because I remember it being a little bit freaky and ghostly, and a bit like Stone Tapes, if I remember rightly.
Amazon UK have it for £8.49 on DVD.
I didn't pay that much for it, even back in 2003 or 4. I think it was like £3. Like I say, literally was. It was in the bargain bucket of Virgin. I'm sure it was Virgin. It wasn't our price. Our price was long gone by then.
Oh, and it was Nigel Neal, the man who created Quatermass as well. That was the man behind the series. So there you go.
There you go.
Just getting that off the Amazon page. I didn't know that. I'm just seeing if it's on anywhere. Like, this could be a candidate for BritBoxy.
Could be.
But yeah, just waiting for someone to.
I just wanted to get that one out of the way.
Good. I like it. Good suggestion. I've never heard of this. And Pauline Quirk looks scarier than the monster on. And Network DVD have it for £8 as well, if anyone's interested.
I missed a trick. My copy.
You picked up a bargain.
Yeah, I think it was like £3. Oh, that's a shame. I wouldn't even have a clue where it is now. Anyway,
maybe it morphed into a monster and beasted away. It's in a charity shop now, waiting for someone to come and claim it.
Yeah. Okay.
But to me, isn't it? All right.
Well, it doesn't have to be. This is a.
I played hard and loose.
Yeah. Mix it up a bit. It's the 70s, man. There were no rules in the 70s.
We
you could go outside. You could ride a bike without a helmet on, and everything.
Wasn't that the 60s? And didn't they introduce a lot of rules in the 70s?
Are we not throwing our keys into the TV bowl?
Wearing a helmet.
Are we not throwing our keys into the TV bowl and just seeing who we end up with and what program?
Well, like in The Good Life.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, man, there's a late night episode of that never got shown. So, have you got one then, Paul, or would you like me?
Me? No, yeah. Well, I can go next if need be. So,
Damien wants to mix it up in a true 70s way.
I'm
So,
just saying,
do it, dude.
okay.
Don't
So,
be so formal.
again, I just went for really popular shows when I was a kid that I loved, and one of those was from
You're just justifying yourself now in case we mock you for what you're about to say.
But if you want to mock me about this classic, then that's completely up to you. But from the mind of Glenn A. Larson, being a kid, obviously, you know, we had Star Wars films, but there's only like a couple of them in the 80s when we were really kids, and then the third one came along, Jedi came along mid 80s, but early 80s, you know, we had that every Christmas, but there was a big gap missing. And then, you know, on TV from Glenn A. Larson, we were given Battlestar Galactica.
Awesome series.
Yeah.
Love that show.
Yeah, and you know, the whole thing was superb. You had X-Wing fighters that weren't really X-Wing fighters, but they kind of were. You had Cylon.
Vipers. They were Vipers.
I know, but when you were a kid, X-Wing fighters, you had like another cool version of an X-Wing fighter, you know, with big old Cylons replacing stormtroopers and all that kind of good stuff. Big old battle sequences. Starbuck off the A-Team in another show, because you didn't know that Battlestar Galactica was made first because you were just used to him being in the A-Team. Yeah. But no, he's a really cool space fighter as well, starfighter. And I just loved it. I loved everything about it. I even loved the little dog. What was his name?
Moffat. Yeah.
I wanted my own pet one, even though they didn't exist then. You kind of can get them nowadays.
With the little boy that grew up to be in the Never-Ending Story. Noah Hathaway. Was that his name? He was Boxy, the little But anyway,
the boy. Yeah. So every week was just a great little, a bit of escapism. While you got to see great old battles in space. And again, I was just a sucker for seeing face in space. Yeah, so seeing Dirk Benedict on screen as well, and you had Apollo.
There was that bit as well in the A-Team when the Cylon walks past and he does that. I know you from somewhere, like, it is him.
Yeah. So this is what he's doing now. Not only was he in Vietnam, he's also been in space. And obviously, the likes of Lorne Green as Adama, Richard Hatch as Apollo as well, and myriads of other people that, again, it's probably one of those things that have gone on to...
I can't remember his name now, but I always liked the guy that played Colonel Ty because I figured that he could just batter anyone else on that ship. He just looked really hard.
Terry Carter.
He just looked like, if like you spilt his pint or his space beer or whatever it was they drank on there, you were going to pay for it.
Space beer.
Well, that was the thing in the 70s. You just put space on it. What is it? It's a space bear. It's a space koala. It's space beer.
Yeah.
Great.
Some space beer now.
And I always liked Boltar as well. I can't remember the
yeah.
guy's real name now, but he was a great villain. And Patrick Whitney turned up later on. Yeah, great show. I love it. I've got it on DVD somewhere.
Of course you have.
And it was really good. And it's just a shame what happened at the end.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that.
No, that's just exactly what I was about to say. We don't tarnish the memory of...
Well, no, that was Galactica 80 anyway. We're in the 70s where it was still good.
Fair dues, you're right, Paul. There is no mocking here.
Thank you.
Right, now to bring it back down again. Now I'm going to go for UFO. The Jerry and...
I've got that written down here, and I've put UFO in brackets. Don't worry, Brett will cover that.
It's the Jerry Anderson, Siri Anderson show with Reg Hill. I didn't watch it in the 70s. This was a show that was on Late Night Late on ITV in probably sort of the mid to late 90s. And it was just on reruns next to Randall and Hopkirk. And V, and Married with Children, and stuff like that. And I watched it then, and it was weird because like, obviously Jerry Anderson's known for Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet and Joe 90 and Terrorhawks and all that sort of stuff. So the fact that I found that he'd done a live action one was I thought, oh, this will be all right. And it's really weird. It was the 70s, but it's got that kind of 60s vibe. It's a bit of a kind of Avengers, John Steed, Emma Peel kind of vibe to it. And it is a bit trippy. And there's some really dark episodes that clearly weren't for children. And it's that real trying to push that high concept science fiction on a £50 a week budget.
It's got the look and feel of something. It's almost as if he wrote it in the 60s. It then took another 10 years to get the funding of that 50p to actually get it made. Because you're right, everything about it screams 60s. And then you see the MCMVV, blah, 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 wherever it is at the end. That's weird. Sorry, carry on.
No, that's right. And it was just, I mean, the pilot episode is when Colonel Paul Foster, who's a top pilot played by Michael Billington, comes up against a UFO and he tries to investigate it, and the government is shutting him down, and he ends up against Colonel Ed Straker, played by the legendary Ed Bishop, and he ends up joining Shadow, which is like the Supreme Headquarters Alien Defense Organization. They were really pushing for that one. Some of the acronyms in Jerry Anderson's are brilliant. This one was a little bit ropey, but hey, it worked. And he ends up joining at the end because he's got that fire. And he said, well, you might as well join us because your skills, you found us out and use your brilliant skills, so use them for us, And and it was a great series, but some of it was really dark. There were bits of I remember one where Colonel Straker loses his memory and then tries to relive it, and it's all, I don't know, it's some real weird, trippy stuff. I don't want to give too much away because most of the episodes, plot-wise, still stand up. Effects-wise and filming-wise, maybe not as much. But if there was a show that could do with a remake, then maybe give it a go. But the kitschness would probably be lost because obviously you've got the Angel Interceptors with their purple wigs and silvery bodysuits that many a young man remembers from those days. And
to be fair, I think it's one of those things. It's fun to go and rewatch, just to see the amount of people you recognise.
Oh yeah, there's that as well. Definitely.
There's so many people in it. I definitely remember Trigger being in it. I forgot his name. Roger Lloyd Pack.
Yeah.
I even think Boise's in an episode. That might be a misremember, but there's just loads of people in it.
Oh, definitely, a lot of people.
Parts, not leads or anything like that. They just Spaceman number 2 comes in and says, "Roger that, sir," and walks out again. You think, hang on a minute, that's Trigger. So it's worth watching just for that, if nothing else.
Even what's his face? Stephen Burkhoff's a pilot in a couple of episodes here and there. I remember him being in it because then later on he just became like Rent-A-Villain. But in that one he's a good guy. But and I actually was lucky enough to meet Ed Bishop years ago at a Comic-Con thing in Birmingham and get a picture of him, and he just seemed genuinely happy.
Sorry, just was that a clang?
Yeah, I'll just
proper name drop there. Yeah. I should have got the bell down back from the bar.
But he just seemed genuinely happy that people remembered a program that he probably doesn't even remember making. He was just, he was just chatting to him normally, and he was just I think he was still bemused by the fact that for half the stuff he'd done, I mean, he spent half his career being voices of puppets for Jerry Anderson, and then he got to play it out in front of the camera, and I think he was just kind of and then he was getting paid for all these Comic-Con things now, and I think he was just genuinely kind of grateful, bemused, and why are people still watching this?
I think there's one thing that we'll never get the full effect from, and I only did because even though I did write in brackets, don't worry, Brett will cover this. I did do a little bit of research. When it was actually originally aired, they didn't air it in proper order because of the old ITV network system. we had Anglia and all that stuff. It aired at different stages across the country, so you might, if you're up north, you might have been seeing it in the right order, but if you're down south, you might be seeing episode 1 and then it'd be followed by episode 3 and then it revert back again. So I guess if you're, it would have been proper confusing. I mean, it's pretty confusing enough anyway, but it would have been proper confusing. You're just watching this thing and like you say, that the dream sequence and stuff like that would have been proper mind bending shite if you're watching it completely out of order. We wouldn't have got that, I guess, because like Late Night Late would have probably done them in proper order.
Yeah.
So we missed the full effect of UFO.
And then, just as a little add on the end of it, there was going to be a second series of UFO based on their moon base, but in the end, I think because of costs and all that, it ended up becoming its own series, and it became what is known today as Space 1999. But which didn't have anything to do with UFO, but the original concept of what was going to be UFO 1999 got kind of ditched during production and morphed into Space 1999, which then became its own series and lasted for 2 series. And of that, I'm just down on series 1 was pretty good. Series 2 just kind of disappeared up its own arse, and for the sake of being weird, and like they lost the kind of what made series 1 really good. But again, another Jerry Anderson sort of high concept science fiction, which kind of the only people, very Roddenberry as well, like it was very in the concept, very explanatory, rather than explosions and shooting and those sorts of things. There weren't like lightsaber battles and explosions. It was all sort of think pieces and deep analysing and humans as a society and all that sort of stuff.
All that good stuff. Cool. Okay, let's bring it back round to me then.
That's you, sir.
And I'm going to bring us crashing back down to earth with a thud.
Ooh.
And I was about to go for something much more serious, but it's a comedy, and it's MASH.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about it.
That, in a similar way, that was on my list, but it was, don't worry, because Damien mentioned this.
Yeah. Exactly. It's we've talked about it loads, so we really don't need to go into detail. But it's one of the few US sitcoms that dared to touch more deeper subjects and not stick to that sort of constant gag thing. Go on.
And would we say the best TV series that came off of a film? Because a lot of times the film comes out and then they knock out a TV series version, like they did with Logan's Run in the 70s, which was shit. But this was like 100 times better than the film I think ever was.
I think it surpassed the film. I think probably anyone that would have seen the film when it originally came out would, if you said to them MASH, I think the sitcom is the first thing that pops into your mind rather than the movie. Absolutely,
definitely.
And again, we've talked about it before, so I'm not going to go into detail. But the season, the final episode, that finale is no matter how many times you watch it, is heart wrenching.
Yeah, I always remember the one.
I was going to say something, but I'm not. I try not to swear. I'm not going to swear.
Don't cry. It's all right. I always remember the one where I forgot the guy's name now. The guy who was originally in charge, and he finally gets to go home, and they're all happy, and you get like the big send off in the cheer, and then they're doing an operation. Someone comes in, reads a telegram out, and he got blown over the water, got blown down over the water, and stuff like that. And it was like, there wasn't a happy ending, and all that, and just different. Yeah.
You had Vietnam was either fresh in the memory, or I don't think it was still going on by then, was it? I haven't got the dates written down of when MASH first aired, but it wasn't. It was definitely still in the consciousness of people's mind, even if the Vietnam War was over. I don't know, and I'm not going to Google it. But so all that stuff was going on.
Off the top of my head, it was September the 17th, 1972.
The end of the Vietnam War?
That it first aired.
All right.
I may have looked that up. But Vietnam, even it was definitely fresh in the mind.
Exactly. So, and obviously...
75. Vietnam War officially ended on the 30th of April, 1975. So,
so there we go.
It would have been very,
Yeah. So even though it's about the Korean War, there's all that stuff going on in the background.
MASH lasted
in the real
longer than
world.
the real Korean War, didn't it?
Yeah.
The real Korean War was only a couple of years.
That's right. So yeah, there we go. MASH again. We've talked about it a lot, so I'm not going to dwell on the subject. I just think it's, if you want to go back and watch stuff that's comedies and stuff that's influenced what's come since, then you start with something like MASH. There you go.
Yeah, I don't think there was a bad episode, was there?
I
Can't say that about many shows.
No, exactly.
Okay, so
Well, here we go.
Get your head around this then, because the next TV show I want to talk about, I didn't watch until the 90s. Well, set in the 70s. I started watching this in the 80s, when it was the 80s.
I'm confused now.
I'm confused now. Start that one again. No.
But you watched it in the 90s, about the 80s, went to the 80s, but it was set in the 70s.
So the series and shows that I want to talk about are from the 70s.
Okay.
But I started watching this in the 80s, when it was in the 80s.
Where's the 90s come into it then? Because you said the 90s.
Oh, hold on. But I started watching the series in the 80s, when it was in the 80s. But the 70s, I didn't start watching until the 90s. It'll make sense when I digress into the actual show, because what I want to speak about,
because my head hurts,
is Doctor Who. So in the 80s, watched it in the 80s, obviously, with the great actors and some dodgy doctors, let's face it, from the 80s. But I fell in love.
Get him, Damien.
No, I'm not. I won't, because we're talking about the 70s. So I'm not even going to mention the name, Mr. McCoy. Won't mention it at all.
But I fell in love in the 90s watching reruns of Doctor Who from the get-go, really. When it was on, I think it was on Gold or something like that on Sky. And I didn't realise, and until you start looking into it, because we all know that Doctor Who's been going for donkey's years, and it's kind of ingrained into all of us.
Oh, can I just buzz in really quick? Sorry to really say, it wasn't Scott, it wasn't UK Gold. It was that. Do you remember the one that was the square you put on your wall? It was on that. The one that was supposed to be like Sky.
Not for us, it wasn't. We didn't. I know what you mean. We didn't have that installed. That was only installed in certain houses. You mean the one with the little dial on the wall?
No. The one, because Sky came out, and then it was, I think it was BSB or something, and it was like an alternative to Sky.
It was B Sky B.
B Sky, because Sky bought them out in the end, and I think that's what became B Sky B. It was like a square, but it was like turned sideways, and it had its own. It was like it's supposed to be like an alternative to Sky, but Sky just bought them out in the end. It was on that. They had Doctor Who on that.
That's what UK Gold was on. UK Gold was on both Sky.
Oh, okay.
Satellite dish and B Sky B satellite dish.
I remember watching it on B Sky B.
Was it?
It was BSB in those days, I think.
Yeah, British something broadcasting. Anyway, sorry,
yeah.
I just conversation to get technical.
That's the whole point of these podcasts. So
is it really? That's what people tune in for, is it?
Some other geek out there would be going, he's right, yeah. Was it Sky? No, it was on Sky, and it was on BSB. So for me, it was Sunday mornings, quite early, but I think that they did a few of them back to back every Sunday, and probably a good job too, because they made shed loads of Doctor Who in the 70s, series and series, but not a series with just 6 episodes. Oh no. That was maybe one story arc in a series, and I think similarly to Bond, when you're a kid, you have your famous your favorite Bond, probably because they were the one that were out at the time, and then when you start watching the rest, and then you kind of get an appreciation for them, or dislike and disdain at some of the actors that try and take on the role that probably don't live up to your idol. But I think until you appreciate, until you experience the madness of Tom Baker performing Doctor Who, all the rest don't necessarily compare to that. He's like the Nicolas Cage of the Doctor Who
Taking a sip of my drink.
Universe.
I love that. The Nicolas Cage of the Doctor Who world.
Well, it kind of is.
I do think he did disappear into that role for a while, didn't he?
Yeah. but you also had Pertwee as well in the 70s again, and they were completely different. But the amount of storylines that they got through in that decade was just phenomenal. And okay, not all of them were on the mark, and some of the production quality, obviously,
the budget had started to wane a little bit.
Yeah, but
No
again,
disrespect.
no. But it's one of those things we absolutely can't spend too much time speaking about it, because we could actually spend podcast after podcast delving into the details. But it needs a mention. If for some reason you haven't gone back to experience the Doctor Who from the 70s, you need to, because in a lot of ways it blows the recent series, and I include the likes of Eccleston and some of the other ones away, for the amount of storylines as well. And some of these at the time just haven't been done before. I mean, the problem that we often talk about when it comes to films in general, let alone anything else, is that, that's a bit familiar. Oh, we've seen that before. At the time, some of this was just, crazy, batshit mad, that no one would think of. And some of it, all right, it was a bit below par or under par, rather. And yes, there's the odd series that maybe where they were slightly low on budget, maybe set in one one location for quite a bit, but they try and make the best of it.
Hey, those space quarries are everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think it deserves some investment from listeners if they haven't delved back into the Doctor Who.
Yeah, I think the problem
to
is
give it a go.
The only place you can do that now is BritBox.
Yeah, it's great
because they haven't got it on. If on iPlayer, they only go as far back, I think, as the reboot.
Yeah, new Who, as it's new. But yeah, all of the old ones are all on all on BritBox. So it's a really good treat for you.
Yeah, I'm still again BritBox. I refuse to.
Well, you could buy just buy the DVDs and Blu-rays.
Well, I've seen them. I've experienced them. I'm not going to go and relive them again because I don't need to. But if you
haven't, just recommending other people to do that.
Yeah.
I would recommend, if you are a die-hard fan, though, the limited edition Blu-ray boxes that they bring out every so often. There's only about 1 or 2 a year. I've got a few of those, and there's so much extra stuff on them for those eras. And I've got some of the what's his face ones, Tom Baker ones, and that. And they've literally even gone into the extras. Like if he was on, it's mainly the BBC stuff that they got the rights to, I think. But if he was on like Pebble Mill at 1, that's on there. If he popped up on Blue Peter, that's on there. Like on the John Pertwee one, there's even some Argos adverts he done, and then he did he advertised a sofa. They have literally gone through everything they can find. They've even got the bits you can put it on before. When you used to get the clock and go, now it's part 2 of Doctor Who featuring. They've even got those on there. They've literally gone, as well as loads of documentaries and features, and they've got a cool thing on there behind the sofa where they've basically got a lot of Doctor Who personalities who are still alive or people from those episodes, and they sit watching it and talk about it and all that as well. So there's a lot of stuff on there if you're a real obsessive diehard.
And I think that's the great thing, isn't it? Because Doctor Who was one of those shows at the time that our parents were probably watching when they were kids, that they did used to hide behind the sofa because they were scared of what was coming. And for a TV show, that's great.
I was scared of the music.
Yeah,
that used to freak me out.
Yeah, it was a kind of another one of those Tomorrow's World incidents. Every time the theme tune come on, because you weren't really sure whether it was going to be a really scary episode or whether it was going to be a cool episode. This was in the 80s, just to let you know, not in the 90s. I was able to watch it in the 90s, a-okay, without getting behind the sofa. But
yeah, definitely. He had a hangover and could be bothered to move.
But it's certainly worth a mention, and not just a great science fiction legacy, but compared to some of the later series, particularly for Doctor Who, it struggles to compare. To some of the madness and wackiness from the 70s.
Some of the craziness
Yeah.
we're seeing in more recent times. Okay, I think we're running out of time for part 1 of our 70s nostalgia trip, and we'll pick this conversation up again
In the future.
Maybe next week, maybe sometime in the future. Who knows? So you have been listening to Damien Hicks,
Brett Summers,
and Paul Hawkins, and we've been doing
the 70s look back show, which I've forgotten what we called it.
Exactly.
That's not important. Really not important right now. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, you can rate and review us in all your preferred podcast apps. You can email us at cultfactionpodcast@mail.com. You can find us at cultfaction.com, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, any others? Twitter?
All of them. We're
All of
on
them.
everything.
Thank you for listening. It's goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye for me. That was from the 70s as well.
Yeah.
Relevance.
Superman.
There is a corridor, and the corridor is time.
Scaring me a little bit. There's no yawning here.
Let's do this. Magic wizard. To say, on a healthy safety note, I had a minted lamb steak for dinner, and you'll be glad I'm not in the bar with you tonight.